there, I am Bonnie McCaffery. Thanks so much for coming back this month. You know, I have the best job in the world because I get to travel to quilt shows all over the place. And when I travel, I meet some of the most interesting people. Now, I met Stacy Hurt at the Long Beach Quilt Show here, and as I walked into the show, there was this most amazing quilt that was of a cheetah. Tell me about that quilt that you did of the cheetah.
The cheetah was done in response to a challenge called She Made Her Mark, and it's about Dr. Lori Marker of the Cheetah Conservation Fund in Namibia, Africa. It will be donated to Dr. Lori Marker when it's done traveling to Houston and everything, where it will be privately auctioned off, and all the funds will go to the Cheetah Conservation Fund in Namibia, Africa.
Great. That's so cool. Now, you are an animal lover because I can see from your wild tiara that there's a few animals represented out there.
Yes,
Tell me about that gorgeous tiara.
I made the tiara for the Tiara Parade for this year's Long Beach Festival. It has all of my loves, which are cats and birds. There are bird feathers, macaw, pheasant, crow. It also has pen nibs because I love calligraphy and I love to draw, and so I put those on there as well, and it has all kinds of bling because, as we know as quilters, it's all about the bling. Yeah.
It is all about the bling. and I've seen from the pile of quilts we have here that you use a little bit of bling.
Just a little.
So, well, look, here's another animal. This is a crane. This is one of the journal quilts.
Yeah, it's actually a blue heron.
Okay, right.
And it is called Great Lady Blue, or My Water Tiger. And she was done for the Journal Quilt Project last year that traveled to Houston at Carrie's lovely show.
That's so neat, yeah.
Thank you.
Now, I did get to see the raven quilt in the back. Tell me about that one.
Noah's Raven was done as a detour quilt for a group, for my quilt group, Quilts on the Wall. Noah's Raven is actually about a poem by W.M. Wallace, and it tells the story of Noah in the Bible let out 2 ravens. The first one did not return, and neither did the second, and I just thought, well, his poem was in response to that, as, you know, why should I have returned?
Now, not just real animals. I see that you have a love for fantasy animals.
Yes, I do.
So
yes,
here
I
is
do.
A dragon that you've done.
Yes. This is a dragon that I asked Cirilio, who is a wonderful fantasy artist. I wrote to him. He has a book called Dragons Out, and I asked him if I could use his image. He graciously accepted and said I could. So I created that dragon and the Celtic knotwork that goes behind it. It's one piece of fused hand-dyed fabric as the background, and it came out quite lovely. And he wrote back after I sent him pictures and was very pleased with it.
Yeah, he must be thrilled to have his work in fiber.
I hope so.
Yeah,
I certainly am.
So I see there is a little bit of a theme here with your love of dragons.
Yes.
What's this guy called?
That's just simply my green dragon. Basically, I started with his eyes. I found that I love the lamp glass, again, all things bling and shiny. And it's just a piece of fabric that my friend brought me back from Houston, one of the big shows. It's metallic green, and I just saw the dragon in there and beaded it. It's actually in Jamie Fingal's book, Mini Embellished Quilts.
Isn't that neat?
It was quite popular, yes.
Now, this is a neat little package type of piece. So let's see, it goes this way, and so these open up, which is kind of neat.
Sort of like an Oriental cookie.
Yeah, and then you said it hangs on the wall like this. Which
yes, it hangs up with a thing like that.
And more beading and fabric.
He was my first dragon that I did. He was a dragon that I cut out. I, painstakingly fussy cut, as we like to say, and fused him to that particular background, and then wasn't happy with him being just by himself because dragons are all about the bling, and so he needed to have quite a bit on him.
He did?
Yes, he did.
And, speaking of bling, dragons with bling.
He was created out of his eye, which was a gift from my daughter for Mother's Day. We went to the bead store, and I couldn't afford to get that particular bead, so I passed it over. And when I got home, she had bought it with her own money. Aww. So this is actually Ellen's dragon. But
you're so sweet, Ellen.
She's a good girl. And she's one of my best art critics, I can tell you. So all of these beads and sequins are put on just as I look at the patterns in the dragon. Obviously, you make them up. His teeth are handcrafted Sculpey that I have painted myself because there are no bead makers out there making teeth, which would be really handy.
This is gorgeous.
Thank you.
Lots of fun beading on here.
I just wanted a fun weekend beading project, And that only took me probably a couple weekends to do.
Yeah, and I love this, the dangles on the bottom.
Yeah, my little dragonflies and little things, because I just love making little beaded things. I just wanted something hanging off the bottom.
More beads, although a little bit of restraint here, you know, just a few sprinkled in the background.
Well, I didn't want God to think I was trying to recreate his universe or anything. But, you know, really, he should have used more Swarovskis, I think. Probably would have been a good idea.
That is fun. What's really neat about this is the black velvet.
Yes,
How
ma'am.
come you use that?
Because when you look at the universe is a great vacuum, and anytime you look at black material in quilt shows, it's very flat, shows up very flat, unless you have just the perfect Amish black or something like that. Even then, it creates no depth. To me, nothing says opulence and decadence and depth and texture like real velvet. So I created my planets and painted them, put them on the black velvet so that all the light would be sucked in away from the planets themselves, and so when it's being lit, all you see are the Swarovski crystals and the planets just illuminate from the background. It's quite stunning.
Yeah. Now here's a really neat combination of different textures and
Yes, this is my very latest quilt, done at the same time as the dragon. You'll notice the orange and the paper background are the similar. That is paper on Tyvek.
Wow.
I wanted to get the different textures to play well with each other, so I was hoping that really was working. There's silk, there's paper, there's damask, velvet, crushed velvet that I've actually stamped on, which is very fun, by the way.
There's another quilt in the show that has some lettering on it.
Yes.
Tell me about that piece.
Yes, that is actually, I call it Silence, and it's just the first stanza of a poem that I've loved for a long time, entitled Desiderata. And the lettering, the words on the quilt are, go placidly amid the noise and haste and remember what peace may be found in silence. And in this time right now, I think that's a really important thing to remember.
That is.
And
that's really nice.
Those letters, that's all hand calligraphy on there as well that I use with a very giant brush, not a fabric brush, but
You're going to show
real,
us.
yes, a real calligraphic metal brush.
Yeah. So we'll get Stacy set up so she can show us how she made those giant letters.
Yeah.
All right, show us how you do these giant letters.
Oh, I'd love to. I love to do surface design. I like taking a lot of different formats, different practices. This is just a practice page to do different things, see how they look all together and how they play. If you looked at this really close, it would be really horribly bad because it's just a practice piece. But when you see it from far away, just as a background, it's quite striking. So keep that in mind when you're doing
It really is,
stuff.
and it's just a nice variety of texture.
Yeah,
and
just different. Just take your pens and play around and do different things with it. We like to do the big letters. And this is a speedball nib and a speedball pen brush.
It's huge.
These are called brushes. This is actually metal. You can hear that. It's not fabric, like a horsehair brush or something like that. So you're just going to dip your pen in the ink, and you'll see the liquidity of this. If you're using just regular calligraphic ink, you won't have a problem because it'll be very thin for your material. I also use airbrush medium. That's what helps to liquid out sometimes if you need it even thinner. You can use any acrylic paint you want. I always recommend using a higher quality one, not the 59-cent variety. And you can thin those out, and they work absolutely just as brilliant. And again, you're not going to be washing it, so you don't have to worry. And then you can see it's just going to make a nice, lovely, wide swath of color. Now, when you're doing this, a lot of times you do have to go back over and make sure that you're filling in. But I also like the look of the openness, because what you can do later then is you can go in once it's set and you can actually put in a different color of ink once it's dry. So you can, start making things that are different colors.
Yeah.
And then you do all of your serifs. That's what these fancy little moves are called. And trust me, they're not fancy. The key to calligraphy is holding the pen at the same angle that it tells you to in your little speedball book
Yeah.
And don't move.
Okay.
Hold it at that angle.
Just keep it at the same angle.
And just evenly spread the paint.
That is so neat how this big wide brush makes these beautiful strokes.
Yes, it does. And I like this better than regular horsehair brushes or any of those kind. First of all, they're, you know, you can't control the edges. I like the
Yeah.
nice cream, crisp, clean edge.
Yeah.
Is what I like.
Oh, that is fantastic.
Mhm.
And do you sell these on your website?
Yes, I do. I do. And I give full instruction on how to use them. There are many different sizes, and vast assortment of inks and instruction are all available.
Excellent. Well, that was pretty cool.
Okay.
Now, let me just throw you a little curveball. I'm going to ask you a question. I think she knows what it is already. I think she's watched the VidCast. So my question to you is, what is your philosophy in life?
My main philosophy in life is really just to run your own race. You can't be anybody else. You can't emulate anyone else. You can look at other quilt styles. You can look at how people do things, but ultimately it's all about who you are and how your own voice comes out in your work. And that means you have to run your own race and not worry about competing with anyone else. It's all about you.
It's
because it's all about you.
It's all about Stacy.
That's right. At least for the next 15 minutes. Woo.
Thank you so much for doing this and driving back so that we could film this. And so it's been really great.
Not a problem. I really enjoyed it.
Good. It was fun. And thank you all for coming. I hope you'll come back next month to see what I have for you then. Thanks for being with me.